Hi, I'm Erik Singer. I'm a dialect coach. So in the technique critique videos where we talk about accent performances in movies, Margot Robbie is really a fantastic accent performer. I don't often have time to go into depth about this or that aspect of language, and today I want to talk about some mind-blowing facts about language and linguistics.
I think you must be a sort of irresponsible type.
So let's just talk about the inventory of speech sounds in a language. English has about 42, 44 distinct speech sounds, depending on the accent, the variety of English. And we're talking about sounds that can make the difference between one word and another. English has an E sound and an I sound, which can change the meaning of a word. Beat is different from bit. Other languages may not have both of those sounds in them. What is the largest number of speech sounds that a language can have? Turns out it's somewhere between 90 and 110, depending on how you count them. A lot of the languages with the largest sound inventories turn out to be click languages because there are lots of ways that you can combine those clicks. Let's have a look.
The three clicks are or the C, which is pronounced, and the Q, which is pronounced D.
On the flip side, what is the smallest number of sounds that a language can function with? Turns out it's about 10 or 11. The Pirahã language in the Amazonian basin is one of those languages. So there's a huge variety there in the ways different languages work. And that doesn't mean anything about a particular language or its people or the way they think or what they're able to express. Languages just work differently. It's a huge variety. Next up, the great vowel shift. So one of the fundamental facts about language, kind of the fundamental fact about language that we know from linguistics, which is the scientific study of language, is that it changes. One period of really interesting fast sound change in the history of English is something called the Great Vowel Shift. It started around 1400. A word that we know as name around 1400 used to be name. And then that ah vowel in the middle changed to a, so we had nam. Then it was an e, so we had nem. Then it was a long e, so we had name. And then finally it came to the diphthong that most varieties of English have now, something like name. So that was a long distance to travel. Another example would be the vowel sound in a word like house started off as oo, so it was a hoose. Vowel sound in a word like time started off as an E, so it was team, and over time it became to be time. And that was a period of really rapid and complete change, but it's an example of the kind of thing that's happening all the time. So why does this happen? We don't know, really for no reason at all. Again, if there's something we know from the scientific study of language, the field of linguistics, it's that language change is essentially arbitrary. Moving on. The American R sound. I've talked about that in some performances and some of the technique critique videos as being a really hard R. American English has a really weird R sound, this thing that you do when you bunch up your tongue. This is a really weird sound. It barely exists in any other language on earth. Really mastering this kind of R sound and being able to slot it fluidly into a flow of speech is one of the hardest things for an actor to learn when they're learning American English. In fact, native speakers of American English find it really hard too. It's one of the very last sounds that a child learns and kind of masters.
Bicycle and a train, a car.
So why is it so hard? It turns out it's really complicated. It's a weird set of things we're doing with our tongue when we make that sound. Mostly, the weirdest thing is that the sides of the tongue are sort of coming up. You can imagine kind of if I'm a tongue and I'm raising my shoulders, the sides of those tongue will come up and they'll make contact with the upper teeth, the molars and the bicuspids on either side. And you can have a really strong version of that where they come all the way up inside and even press out against the sides of the upper teeth. You can get a sense of this if we look at an MRI scan of a person pronouncing this kind of molar R. Let's have a look.
Real.
In addition to that, the root of the tongue is often pulling back in, and you can even get a little groove in the back of the tongue. So all of those things going on, it's a really complex articulation, hard to get right if you're a kid, hard to get right if it's not your native language. Moving on. There's this accent that often gets called transatlantic or mid-Atlantic, as though somebody were maybe born on an island halfway between the US and England. You can hear a great example of this accent here.
Fill these forms out at the desk over there and bring them to me.
Here's another great one here.
Do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
Why, yes, of course.
One of the things that's really interesting about it is it's essentially a made-up accent. It's synthetic. It's not a way that anybody talked natively.
I think you must be a sort of irresponsible type.
So this is an accent that was essentially invented in its earliest form by one guy, an Australian named William Tilley, who at the end of the 19th century thought that there might be something to be gained by everybody who spoke English speaking exactly the same way. So he devised this accent that was sort of the best accent of English. It was correct speech. And he wanted everybody everywhere to speak this. It became a thing in the United States where he was teaching. It was taught in the New York City public schools, and it became the accent of stage and screen. And so actors were taught to speak this way, that this was correct speech. So the early version of a dialect coach was usually called an elocution teacher. It was really different, essentially, because they were teaching actors to speak correctly, not teaching actors how to speak like the character that they were playing. So this mid-Atlantic accent, this perfect correct speech, that's this synthetic created accent.
I wouldn't have lost them for the world. They were all mementos.
So that's why we hear that in old movies all the time. So this has been a few kind of cool things about language, things I think are cool. Thanks for listening.